share some comments, feedback. We'll try to keep it interactive. But today's presentation, I'll just be talking about some holiday nutrition tips and talking about the concept of mindful eating. Mindfulness, as we'll talk about a little bit later, stems from actually Buddhist culture, but we hear about it in so many different modalities nowadays, in psychology, in medicine and research, and then, definitely in the spiritual side as well. I'll talk a little bit about those origins and how it applies to nutrition specifically, but also how we can apply it in many aspects of life. So I'll just get started. I think one or both of you maybe know a little bit about me. I do have my introduction there, and we are recording this as well. So potentially people might benefit from this later. So part one, we'll just be talking about mindfulness and mindful eating. Then we'll jump right into the nutrition tips for the holidays, and then we'll just have a question and answer. Maybe you have some specific things about the holidays you have questions around regarding nutrition, or something you'd like to share about your own holiday tradition that could help us all learn from each other. So I'm Dan, the registered dietitian at Preventis Collaborative Health. This presentation also was benefited by our amazing social media team. I could not have developed this beautiful layout and this presentation format without, both Nicole's here. I don't know if you know them, but they did a great job organizing this. So what do I do? Well, I'm a dietitian here, and I provide nutrition education and counseling, as well as I do also on the side, and potentially maybe soon here at Preventis, personal and private cooking classes, where I typically incorporate a little bit of international cuisine and try to combine some nutrition principles, but also make it fun and about healthy eating and but also a healthy relationship to food. I'm also a foodie. I started out as a chef before becoming a dietitian. And so becoming a dietitian just allows me to practically use it in ways to help people and work with people, which is a passion of mine. I also am a certified yoga instructor. Yoga is a big part of my life. So coming into this sense of mindfulness, I certainly throughout my training and even after, as just personal interest, have explored the ideas of mindfulness, both in nutrition, but also just in life. And I'm a big science nerd, and anybody who spends more than 15 minutes with me will probably attest to that, probably 5 minutes actually. This is a point where I thought we could maybe have a little discussion just regarding holidays, traditions, and maybe I'll sprinkle in some nutrition, but I was just curious to those joining if they have some kind of holiday food tradition that's really important to them. I find often when we have these conversations, or when I have these conversations, everybody has a sort of unique classic family tradition. My family tradition, I have Norwegian roots, and we would do these things called fuddymen, basically kind of cookie pastry type things. New Year's Eve, we would always do fondue. That was a classic. Curious to hear holiday traditions from either of you that are with us tonight. You can unmute yourself. Thanks, Leslie.
Oh, hi, Dan, and other participant. My family tradition is also surrounding cookies. We have what we call Christmas cookies, which is basically gingerbread, which comes from the German side of the family, apparently. And you make gingerbread, you cut them out in holiday appropriate shapes, as you can imagine, and then you put icing on them, and then you put sugar on them, and they're always better if you include a little bit of chocolate on them. And there's a whole process. You have to let them dry, but not get too dry and so forth. So they're great, and they make really sort of nice sort of gifts without having to wrap a present, sort of casual gifts for people at the holidays. But the problem is the recipe is huge, and we sort of tell ourselves we're going to make like for family and friends, and so you make a few batches, and cookies can go on forever. So I love them, and we only do them at Christmas, but that is something that is is maybe not nutritionally sound.
Well, I mean, I think sometimes we can think about food in different ways. In some ways, it can kind of nourish our health, but in other ways, it can also nourish our soul. And I mean, I think that a lot of these memories we have making these cookies or, spending time with our family are easily as valuable for health. Granted, yes, we want to be aware of the added sugar, but yeah, I mean, it's always important to find that balance, and I think those family traditions are really meaningful because often they date back generations. So keeping that type of stuff present, I think, is also quite important. Who else do we have here? I can only see the eyes. If you're comfortable introducing yourself.
Hi, Dan. It's Debbie.
Oh, hey, Debbie. How you doing?
I was the other person on there too, but I was having trouble with my sound. So
Oh,
I'm on my iPad now.
I see. I think you were on both devices, and that's why the echoing was coming in.
Yeah, but I wasn't getting any sound out of my computer. So I'm on my laptop, but it works.
Great. Well, would you be comfortable sharing maybe one of your family traditions?
Well, our tradition is just the traditional turkey with the trimmings. Um, More so the food and what goes with that, like the dressing and the potatoes and the vegetables more than sweets, I would say.
Hmm.
But now that I'm alone, more so, right? Um, I don't know. I'm looking to make new traditions.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, definitely an opportunity there. I think especially nowadays, people have so many different food preferences, tastes, sensitivities, allergies. I think a lot of people have had to adapt their buffet or their typical menu items to reflect the different preferences and tastes of different family members or new family members, or they just feel like a change. I know that rum balls are a big thing in my family as well,
Well,
but now we don't do those so much, and I'm thinking about changing it into an amaretto version because I'm not a big fan of rum, but anyway, so yeah, no, I think it's also an opportunity to be creative and come up with new things. I have some recipes here that might be of interest to kind of give that a shot, and of course, we can always have these kinds of discussions in the office here or online for yeah, if you need some more tips. But yeah, let's dive right in. So mindfulness and nutrition. So an overview of mindfulness. So it does actually originate from Buddhism, but it actually now, and I would say even over the past few decades, but definitely more recently, has credible evidence-based modality in psychology, nutrition science, medical science. And in the context of nutrition counseling specifically, it has been shown to help as an alternative kind of side modality for prevention and management of health conditions. So for example, one of the strategies, MBSR, so mindfulness-based stress reduction, this is something that has been around actually for decades, but now we see it used in things like weight management to help basically from this mindful eating perspective. And with that, you can find improved relationships with food. A lot of people eat for stress or for emotional reasons, and sometimes rather than just pushing those away, trying to acknowledge them and bring them, into the sort of internal dialogue and reflective process, you can maybe start to actually improve your relationship with food if those are things that you have challenges around. And yeah, as I mentioned, like weight management, stress management, like mindfulness and mindful eating have definitely been shown through research to help with these things. More than what I'd probably be able to go in this presentation, but I mean, absolutely something that we can explore in appointments as well. So yeah, I talked a little bit about that first one. So I would say there's two complementary approaches that kind of stand out, at least from my experience with mindfulness and nutrition. One is just this idea of sort of minimizing distraction, turning off your screens, just taking a moment to actually appreciate the food, eating slowly, mindfully. It comes up, I mean, it's a generic term, but it does have this, kind of background. And again, like mindfulness-based stress reduction, this John Kabat-Zinn, he's the founder of this technique. But again, even moving back, it does have that sort of Buddhist sort of origin as far as mindfulness in all aspects of daily living. So whether you're walking, whether you're doing the dishes, doing the laundry, any moment you can find to sort of find a sense of presence, being present, is essentially very much related to this concept of mindfulness. I think sometimes people think in order to do meditation, or you have to imagine yourself sitting cross-legged on a mountain in Nepal. I use that analogy a lot, but I think it's quite common. But, I'll show you a quote from a really famous Buddhist monk who was taught at US colleges and given presentations at prisons in the US for people who are struggling regarding mindfulness. And his name is Thich Nhat Hanh. He's a Vietnamese monk who was prominent in the Vietnamese War. And like I say, he's quite famous now. He passed away, unfortunately, earlier this year. And he really argues, and I use that term very lightly because he has a very eloquent way of talking about mindfulness. He embodies it, and he really shows that you can be mindful in all aspects of life, definitely through your food, through your nutrition, appreciating where the food comes from, its relationship to health, to your body, to your food, to your culture, your traditions like Christmas. But also, you can be mindful when you're walking up the stairs, and you can always come back to your breath. So if you have questions about that or would like resources regarding him, a great introduction to that is a short transcript he wrote called Be Free Where You Are. This is a transcript of a speech he gave to prison inmates, and he talks about mindfulness, including mindful nutrition, and how basically these people who are in a very closed place, how they can be mindful and present where they are. So that's kind of the first part. Now, the second one now is more of a reflective internal dialogue. I mean, of course, there's overlap to the first point, but Michelle May, a medical doctor, she has a website, newsletter, a lot of great resources, and she uses what's called this Am I Hungry eating cycle. And I'll actually show you that in a moment. Oh, that's that Thich Nhat Hanh quote. Yeah, actually, I'm going to come to the Michelle May in just a little bit. Basically, it's about the who, what, how, wheres, and whys of nutrition. And there's some sort of questions that can help you have that internal dialogue. And yeah, we'll go through that in a bit. But I thought I'd just share this quote from Thich Nhat Hanh that, in my mind, is a really great way to consider, or an alternative approach of considering nutrition. And so he says, when we can slow down and really enjoy our food, our life, and our health, we take on a much deeper quality. I love to sit and eat quietly and enjoy each bite, aware of the presence of my community and aware of all the hard and loving work that has gone into my food. When I eat in this way, not only am I physically nourished, but I'm also spiritually nourished. The way I eat influences everything else that I do during the day. I think a lot of us can relate to that. If I can look deeply into my food and take this time as a meditation, just as important as my sitting or walking meditation time, I receive the many gifts of the cosmos that I would not otherwise profit from if my mind were elsewhere. Because if I eat and am consumed by my worries and projects, I am eating a lot of stress and fear, and this is harmful to my body and mind. And this was actually a quote, it was either from a book that he wrote or a dialogue that he had, I think, with Oprah Winfrey. But one way or another, he has a tremendous amount of books and that talk about mindfulness. So highly, highly recommended. Not from a dogmatic Buddhist approach. I think, again, through science and research, we see mindfulness can have many applications no matter what your background is. So just wanted to share that. And so this is the Michelle May Am I Hungry eating cycle. And so this sort of, as we just saw in the last quote, nutrition can actually impact a lot of different aspects of our day. And it's a little bit more complicated than just the what we eat. I think a lot of my clients will say to me, well, I know what I should be eating. And so they have these sort of goals or this internal knowledge. And maybe that's just one part of this cycle, the what do I eat? But it's usually these other surrounding factors that actually contribute to what that actually is. And it's usually also a relationship between what that food is that can influence all these factors. So, having a dialogue with someone like a dietitian, in many cases also sometimes a psychologist, can be very useful to explore these relationships and help improve your relationship with food. And I'm just going to use one example here. And again, she has great resources that give prompting questions, because a lot of times people don't even know where to start with this internal dialogue. Journaling can be great, but again, like there are some great resources, also some that I have here at the clinic that we can go through if you're interested as well. But just going to do this example of the whys and the whats. So this is sort of how it's formatted in one of her resources. So 2 of the decisions around that cycle that I highlighted is the why do I eat and the what do I eat. And so you can have questions for increasing awareness, again, in this handout, and this is just an example, and questions you could ask yourself while you're out for a walk. Are you aware of any situations or emotions that trigger you to want to eat when you aren't hungry? So we eat for more reasons than just hunger. And what types of foods do you want to eat when you're eating for emotional reasons? And so again, just trying to identify or put some words or some I think that can actually be very powerful to help develop some possible strategies. So, for example, key messages and possible strategies as you work through that process is to identify and maybe reduce environmental cues for overeating, for example, or identify and cope with emotional triggers for overeating. Using balance, variety, and moderation to guide your choices. And that if you do choose to make a change in your diet, it is highly recommended to start with small, focused, incremental steps. So yeah, this is just a little bit of an example of this, this cycle. And again, another form in which we can look at mindful eating. And so without further ado, we can talk about some healthy holiday nutrition tips. We will do a Q&A at the end. So if anything kind of resonated with you in that mindfulness stuff, be happy to share. We are recording this, so keep in mind this might be shared. So just keep that in mind. If you have any concerns about sharing anything among Preventus members. So yeah. But if you're comfortable, by all means. And so, yeah, so planning mindfulness and moderation. So I've just kind of put a few key tips here. And so one thing that I always recommend is try not to skip meals. You want to keep your blood sugars and your appetite in check. One thing that I highly recommend and talk about often is this concept of intentional snacking and kind of partnered snacking, another concept our other dietitian, Brittany Lenz, talks about. So getting a good protein and complex carbohydrate together can do a lot in terms of helping appetite and satiety. And so we show up, oh, we've got someone else joining. It's one of our nurse practitioners. And so it can be really handy to actually have a snack before getting to an event to help take away the focus on the food. I mean, I think everyone knows what the feeling of hangry is like. And importantly, it takes about 30 to 40 minutes from the time we start eating to the time that we get that optimal hormonal regulation telling us that we're actually full. So if we try to eat in a 30 to 40 minute window where we're starving, chances are we tend to eat faster, less mindfully. And then, I think that sort of feeling after too much at a Thanksgiving or Christmas buffet can be uncomfortable and potentially impact your ability to spend time and have meaningful conversation with friends and family. Prevent food waste, think leftovers, so it's not feast or famine. Obviously you're going to be having a lot of food. There probably will be more than what you need. So maybe think ahead about what types of meals might be present. And if you are the one who's hosting, then maybe you could potentially think about some ways you could make some freezer-friendly meals, like a turkey soup or, something with the vegetables that you have yeah, just kind of have a bit of a plan for some of the potential leftovers. Certainly, keeping alcohol in moderation, both alcohol and the sugar sweetened beverages, those tend to be a source of excess added sugar and calories. Now, of course, enjoy in moderation, but think about some of the things that you really want to have in the events and some things that maybe you're okay without. So if having that eggnog or that, chai latte or pumpkin spice beverage is really important to you, absolutely have it. But if there's other things that, you could probably do without and you want to have kind of a moderate balanced meal or snack during the day or evening, just kind of do a reflection before that and think about what you could be kind of going for and what maybe you want to sort of make a compromise on. Eat slowly or until about 80% full. So I already talked a little bit about that idea of intentional snacking and that window of time it takes for that hormonal response to kick in. So if you can kind of pace yourself throughout the evening, you might find that you're not going to be eating too much at one given time. You might be able to actually focus more on having a conversation with a family member who you haven't talked to in a while. So focusing on some of these other things and just instead of just the foods. Planning some daily movement, always a good idea. Exercise is going to improve your metabolism. Absolutely, it can help with your mood, with stress, and that's always a good tip as well. So just planning that in, taking account of your schedule and see where could you maybe get in some physical activity. And visit the people, not the food. Of course, visit the food as well. But think about some of the people you haven't talked to in a long time, and for me, sometimes I don't think about it until it's too late, and I see somebody I really wanted to talk to, but I don't know what to talk about. And so I don't want to be distracted by the food. Maybe take some time to reflect on the people you're going to see, and maybe your focus and attention can also be more on that spending time together element as well. And please, please, please don't feel guilty. If you end up overindulging a little bit, we're human. And like I say, there's a lot of family traditions, and it's important to take this time to celebrate together and not be super critical. Of course, we want to practice the moderation, but again, feeling guilty tends to be counterproductive in the whole long-term health game. And outsmarting the buffet. So planning again with a dash of mindfulness. So perhaps maybe contributing a healthy dish. I did post those recipes in the link. I can send those out after as well. I think you both have my email. And then choose your festive favorites. So like I said, there's some holiday favorites like the turkey and potatoes. Or doing like the cookies, or maybe the act of making the cookies is more important than the eating of the cookies itself. So just take that time to reflect. Adding color to the plate, always a good plan. I mentioned already, like not coming starving. Usually that tends to change the trajectory of where you enter in at the buffet as well. Interestingly, there's a researcher in Ontario. Some of his research has been a little bit controversial, but I think there's some value to a lot of it. His name is Brian Wansink, and he studies this concept of mindless eating and also this idea of food environments. So there's an example where they essentially just changed the architecture, so to speak, of a school food cafeteria. So they put the healthy foods at the front, like quote unquote healthy foods. I shouldn't use that term, but more of like the salads and the nutrient dense foods at the front, and more of like the heavier foods, like more like more calorically dense foods at the end of the buffet line. And so just by starting there, they found that the kids at the school were more likely to kind of fill up on the more nutrient dense foods first. They put the candy bars out of reach, so they were still there, but they would have to request them. They put the milk and water in front of the pops, so kids just through this sort of mechanism where they're probably not fully aware, they just started grabbing the water and the milk more often. So if you can, and this relates to other aspects I talk about in nutrition, if you can be the architect of your food environments, and this goes for the buffet as well, for where you enter, a lot of times that can almost inadvertently or without even having to think about it, impact the overall health and nutrition on your plate or in your overall nutrition strategy or theme. And and eat slowly. So that, that's also, that gives you that window of the 30 to 40 minutes. The food's not going anywhere. Just take the time to enjoy. And if you have any tips on how you've had some success or challenges around the holidays, let's talk about that too at the end. And actually, that's where we are right now. So does anyone here have any healthy eating tips or strategies for the holidays?
Not really. I'm trying to come up with something, and I'm drawing a blank. Really don't have any.
All right. Sometimes we don't think about these things. It's just the holidays, right? But that's why we're here today, because clearly we have an interest in navigating this a little bit. So yeah. Francis, anything to chime in? Oh, maybe she's not there.
Oh, no, I'm here.
She's there.
Sorry, I was just exercising while I was listening.
Oh.
I guess that one of the things that we do is at least try to moderate it with some type of activity like cross-country skiing or skating or something like that. And then the other thing is just keep drinking lots of water. Water fills you up a little bit and keeps you hydrated as well. But and then we just try to have a variety of foods, so we don't kind of keep all the snacks away that our kids love, but at least we have other options.
Excellent. Yeah, 100%. Those are all great strategies. Debbie, did you have something to share, or you feel you're okay?
I really have nothing to contribute either for healthy eating. That's kind of why I'm here.
Well,
I'm waiting for your recommendations.
yeah. So like I say, like actually, even as Francis said, like just having a variety, I think having some of the classics, some of the family favorites, the sweets or what have you that everyone comes to expect and enjoy, but rounding it out with a nice colorful salad or some interesting way to prepare some vegetables or some lean prepared meats or yeah, just having some different options, I think is a great idea as well. Yeah, and drinking lots of water, absolutely. Staying hydrated. A lot of the foods around the holidays are typically high in a lot of salt and sodium as well. So making sure that you're keeping that osmotic balance in the body is always a good plan. And counteracting the alcohol. So like again, if you are going to choose to have drinks over the holidays, maybe switch out having one drink and then one glass of water and then just sipping it slowly, setting it down, having that conversation with a friend or family. These are all like really good strategies. So I guess a good sort of strategy for yourself after this presentation is, have you experienced challenges around nutrition at the holidays? And what has the challenge been? And what might be a way to navigate that? And if you don't know the answer, that's fine. Even just asking yourself that question and planting that seed is a step. Maybe it'll come to you a little bit later on. And maybe just the process of thinking about it or talking about it with somebody like myself or a close friend could also be a way to help create a strategy that's unique for you and the challenges that you might face. So yeah, just to kind of recap our short presentation, is mindfulness and nutrition. So I highlighted these two main strategies, the mindful eating and this mindfulness-based stress reduction strategy. We didn't go deeply into MBSR, but again, we can talk more about it in person. And you can definitely it's also a modality that's practiced by a lot of psychologists as well, outside of just nutrition alone, but in many aspects of life. With that, I did talk about Thich Nhat Hanh and his books and contributions to the idea of mindfulness. He has another great book called Peace in Every Step. There's that one that I mentioned, Be Free Where You Are, which is a very short transcript, just 75 pages, big, bold print. So that's a really nice, quick exposure to that way of looking through that lens. And then, yeah, the Am I Hungry eating cycles. So this reflective internal dialogue, just understanding the relationship of not just the what you're eating, but the other factors that influence that, such as the whys, the wheres, the whens, and the how. So yeah, I hope that hopefully provided some new insights, and then yeah, then the healthy eating tips for the holidays. So we can summarize it into some of those tips around planning and moderation. Just knowing what to expect, what you're walking into, and maybe not coming super starving, making the plate a little more colorful, maybe bringing a healthy recipe with you. I did provide that list of healthy recipes. I'll bring that up in just a moment. And then sort of outsmarting the buffet. So starting with the salad, start filling your plate up there, or yeah, make it colorful, and yeah, so some of those aspects. So I'm just going to, before we do that, the thank you and the questions, I wanted to, bear with me. I'm gonna pull up the recipe ideas for the holidays. All right, because can everyone see this this recipe ideas here?
Yep.
Yeah, so if you click on the and if you're able to access the chat box, and if not, you can always email me after. These are just some ideas. And in that Word document, you should just be able to click on these links. So one's from the Mayo Clinic. It's a French green lentil salad. So I'm often promoting incorporating legumes into the diet, great source of soluble fiber among plant-based protein and other vitamins and minerals. So that's a nice one. I know pumpkin spice is a popular one nowadays, so I included a little pumpkin spice for people who might like that. She includes chia seeds in this, also great source of soluble fiber. So very nice, satisfying, festive type of dessert alternative. You could put it in nice portion controlled things to put out for a buffet, or you could just enjoy it at any time. Pickup limes, so these are some plant-based. Typically, there's no concern with getting meat and everything else at the holidays, and there is a lot of evidence to be more plant-forward in your approach. I'm not suggesting you need to go vegan, but this is a really great website for some interesting recipes that are plant-based. So there's actually a link here on her tips for the holidays, and she's a dietitian originally from Vancouver. But she now lives in the Netherlands, and her website is a wealth of great information for nutrition, particularly from a plant-based perspective. She's a great culinary mind as well. So roasted garlic, red pepper hummus, chocolate fudge brownie bites, some oven roasted sweet potato fries, caramel lattes, chai hot chocolates. So, some nice, interesting dishes there. And then this other article here gives some more ideas on healthy appetizers, but also within the same article talks about healthy nutrition tips similar to some of the ones I discussed today that can be used for helping your holiday season nutrition strategy. So with that, I think it's if there's any questions left, I'd be happy to have a discussion. But thanks a lot for coming.